So this is a question I wanted to take a look at that kind of illustrates the importance of keeping current earnings and profits and accumulated earnings and profits as keeping track of them separately. So, okay, so the question says, Exit Corporation has accumulated earnings and profits of $24,000 at the beginning of the current tax year. Current year earnings and profit is $20,000. During the year, the corporation makes the following distributions to its sole shareholder who has a $22,000 basis for her stock. Okay, so I'm going to break this down and look at it in some different steps here. So step one. And I typed most of this out beforehand so I can just copy and paste it in so that you don't have to sit here and just watch me type the whole time. So step one, determine how much, how much of the current earnings and profits is going to be attributed to each distribution. And remember, this is done proportionally, okay? So we know current distributions for current earnings and profit for the year is $20,000. So you're not going to just say, oh, well, that's all going into the April 1st amount, and now we're out of current earnings and profits. But instead, we need to look at what the total is here for the year and find out what percentage of that total each one of these distributions is, and apply that percentage to the current year earnings and profits, and divide that $20,000 proportionately between these four distributions. Okay. So to do that, we're going to take first, okay, got it. First, total distributions for the year of $60,000. That's just adding these up here, okay? Then I want to look at what the percentage of each distribution is compared to the total, okay? So here's what that looks like. Okay, so for the April 1st, we've got 20,000 of the 60,000, or a ratio of 1 to 3, which is basically 33%. Same for June 1st, because that's the same distribution. August 1st, we've got 15 divided by 60, or 1/4, so that's 1/4 of the total distributions. And then November 1st is 1/12 of the total distributions. So now we're going to take this ratio, 1/3, or 33%, 1/4 or 25%, and so on, and we're going to multiply that ratio times the $20,000 that we're divvying up for this year. Okay, so here's what that looks like. Okay, so April 1st, 1/3 times 20K is 6,667. Same with June 1st, obviously that's rounded. August 1st, 1/4 of 20K is 5,000. And November 1st, 1/12 of 20K is, again rounding, 1,666. Okay, so what that means is these are the amounts of each of those distributions here that are going to be treated as dividends and taxed as dividends coming out of current earnings and profits. So that's not all of the dividends necessarily that we're going to recognize, because we still have to distribute the accumulated earnings and profit. But you need to remember that from reading that accumulated earnings and profits, instead of dividing it up equally between or proportionately between the distributions, for accumulated you just start with the earliest distribution of the year and you use as much of the accumulated earnings and profits as you can in going chronologically until you run out. Okay, so that's what, let me show you what that looks like. Let's see here. Okay, so like I said there, we need to apply accumulated earnings and profits for the remaining amount that will count as dividends. Total accumulated earnings and profits is 24,000. And we will allocate it as soon chronologically in the year as we can, as follows. So first we look at April 1st. The distribution was 20,000, and we took $6,667 of that and attributed that to current earnings and profits. So we look at what's left over, 20K minus 6667, and that leaves us with whoops, cut and paste here for you. So again, that leaves us with $13,333 of this $24,000 here that we will use up and allocate in the April 1st distribution. So now we have accounted for the entire April 1st distribution. So all of this $20,000 will be considered a taxable dividend, okay? And we've used up all of our current earnings and profits, which we used up here, and we've used up $13,333 of the remaining earnings and profits that we had. Okay, so now what's left over is $24,000 minus $13,333, or $10,667. And we're going to take that $10,667 and we're going to apply that to the next distribution, which is June 1st. And again, just like April 1st, the June 1st distribution still has this $13,333 left that we haven't already attributed to current earnings and profits. So since $13,333 is more than what we have left over in our accumulated, we're going to use up all of the accumulated and still have some of this April 1st distribution that's going to come back to us as a return of capital. Okay. Like we see here. Okay, so it says leaves 10,667 as accumulated earnings and profits. Use all of that up, and then now we just go down and look at whatever's left after using all the current and all the accumulated earnings and profits. What's left in the June 1st distribution? What's left in the August 1st distribution? What's left in the November 1st distribution? So we will total all of those up of what's left in those different distributions, okay, which you see right here. And since 10,000 plus 2666 plus 3334 totals up to 16,000, that's less than what the stockholder's basis in the stock is. So all of that will be considered return of capital. If that had been more than the basis in the stock, then whatever was above and beyond the basis in the stock would have been treated like a sale, or basically got capital gains treatment. So hopefully that sums up or explains. Oh, I forgot to put the final answer there, which you should be able to figure out by now. But basically the question asked about August. So for August, we have $5,000 of the August distribution that will be a taxable dividend from earnings and profits, which we figured out right there. And we were not able to use any of the accumulated earnings and profits to offset any of the remainder of that distribution. So the entire $10,000 remaining amount of that distribution will be a return of capital.